There's so many times where people have reached out to me asking, how do I push forward? How do I find a way when everything around us feels like it's falling apart or there's very little control that we have, right, around what's going on? And so I wanted to do today's episode really focusing on resilience and how do we find the drive to move forward and to push forward when things are not necessarily ideal. And so my guest today is Shazad Carbaidwala, who is a coach, who is a leader, who wears so many different hats in his life. But I really wanted to have this conversation with someone who I think could bring a lot of value to you as a listener, as a watcher. So Shazad, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sasha. It's an honor to be part of your show. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So for folks who may not know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I reside in the Chicagoland area in a town called Westmont. Um, I'm a brand ambassador. I wear quite a few hats. I've been with the same organization, SAP, for 20 years. And, SAP has been a true catalyst for my success, Sasha, outside of family and friends and their support. And, I'm a executive coach. I'm in the law enforcement as a female officer. I've published a couple books, do a lot of motivational speaking in different avenues based on my past experiences as well. And own my own championship mindset coaching practice and personal training practice as well. So I've been doing that for quite some time. Very, very lucky and blessed to have the opportunities that I have. Um, so yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Wonderful. When we first spoke, one of the things that initially came to my mind when we were planning for this was, I often talk about wellness and self-care and, just how we step back and take care of ourselves coming from three different directions, right? Mind, body, and soul. And so knowing, some of the things that you do, you hit kind of all of those things. And so the question I have is, how did you start on this path, right, of helping people figure out what they need to do for themselves? I know you do bodybuilding as well too. How did you determine, what, this is how I want to give back. This is how I fill my cup by helping people fill theirs.
Yeah, and it took a while, Sasha. It didn't happen overnight. You know, I didn't find my purpose until my adulthood. It took a while. It was based on my past experiences and some of the circumstances that I was in to make me into the person that I am today. And there's still a lot of work to be done, right?
Mhm.
And it got it got to the point where if I didn't make changes in my life, I was gonna go down a dark path. And in life, things happen to all of us, right? We have adversity, but the true measure of someone's success, I feel, is how they overcome that adversity and moving on. And it's really important. And this is not something that I didn't realize until later on in life, is that it takes a village. If you have specific things and life goals and you want to conquer them, it's very difficult to handle those independently. So you mentioned self-care. I'm a big advocate of self-care, making sure look good, feel good, and if you put the right plan in place to conquer your goals and milestones, it could happen. But accountability is very, very critical in people's success. If you don't hold yourself accountable, you can't hold others accountable either. And it's a
Absolutely.
whole
Absolutely.
group dynamics in order for someone to be successful, in my opinion.
And it's counterintuitive because and I'm going to speak specifically to the United States. One of the ideals of the United States is this rugged individualism, which runs very counter to this village, right? This community that we need in order to be successful. And so there's this mindset of, actually it's cognitive dissonance, right? I need to do this by myself. I did this on my own. But in reality, there were people there that helped, open doors and supported and, help provide you with the education that you need. And that is the village. And so there's this mindset that, oh, they're just props in my success versus they are the anchors in my success. These are the folks that have been around me, support me, etc. And so when I heard from you just now, was it took a while for me to get here, but I realized that I had, all of these people and encounters that help support my journey. And a lot of times I think people feel that they are in whatever it is they are alone because of that rugged individualism mentality versus who's in my village, who can help support me. I often will share with people when I talk about networking is there's again this mindset that, oh, I have a huge vast network of people. Okay, so you're connected to a lot of people on LinkedIn. Great. Who do you actually know and who can help you on your journey? And I think once you start to narrow down like who can actually help you on your journey, you realize your network isn't as big as you thought it was. But it could be much more powerful. And so when you were speaking, you talked about SAP being that organization that kind of helped uplift your where you are now. Can you talk to us about how you were able to utilize your employer, right, to help in your journey? Because so many people feel like, oh, my employer is just to give me a paycheck versus they could be a strategic partner in my path to success. So can you talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, and a lot of this resonates with early development and, the millennials and early talents that are graduating or looking to advance their career early on in their career.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when I'm coaching and guiding and mentoring, this is kind of the things that I use these real life examples. When I entered into SAP, I didn't know much about SAP. I know it was a software organization. I arrived in 2007 and I was I was in the midst of my bodybuilding career. I was trying to become a professional bodybuilder. So I had that going on, plus receiving my graduate degree, trying to establish my career. And the first the first thing that came into the picture was when I received my pro card in 2009 and I went to my leadership at SAP and I said, this is I received my professional bodybuilding card. This was a, a big accomplishment for me. It was a major milestone. And the response that I received from my leadership, this is amazing. And Sasha, I mind you, I was only 2 years into SAP, and I wasn't really thinking that it was a career. I thought more of it as a job.
Mm-hmm.
Their response back to me was, "This is amazing news. How can we support you?" And that's one example of many of how I've leveraged this amazing organization to catapult me into doing other things, executive coaching, championship mindset coaching, building my brand in the personal training space. So, speaking at prisons, things like that, they've been a catalyst for all of that. And that's what strategic planning is with your organization. But the first important step to all of that is effective communication skills. Make sure your leadership in whatever role you have, whatever career you have, understand what you're trying to accomplish to build your personal brand and try to intertwine that with your corporate brand. And then building a plan around that and tackling milestones and activities and keeping yourself accountable. That, for me, that has been the recipe for success.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's so many things there. One, there's investment in you, holistic investment in you as an individual versus seeing you as a cog in the machine,
Yeah.
right? You're here to do a job and we don't care anything else about what's going on in your life, right? We want you just to do X versus let's invest in you as a person. And if we support you, you will show up for us, right? Like that's how a lot of organizations really need to start thinking about their employees. And unfortunately, we're in a time where people think organizations are starting to feel people are disposable, but that's a whole other episode for another day. But I think, that investment in the person is so important because that leads to, again, psychological safety and helping people feel like I'm valued, I'm seen, I'm heard, I'm connected, I'm a part of something. Um, and because I'm a part of this, I will give them 110% back because they're giving me 110%. So I think that that's a great example of what that could look like. The other thing that kind of came up for me was there will probably be people listening that they're like, oh, well, I don't want my personal life tied into my professional life, right? I keep it very separate, which is fine. But again, I think the piece that you mentioned was like, what are your personal goals and how can that organization help you meet those goals? It's not necessarily that you have to merge everything together. It's just understanding what pieces fit into the puzzle. I did a very similar thing when I knew I was leaving my employer, but I'm like, okay, I'm not leaving anytime soon. How can I utilize the resources of support that's here in order for me to get to my next? Right. And so that's when I got my first coaching certification as well was, oh, y'all going to pay for this? Okay, cool. Y'all pay for this, right? You all help. I can bring some of those skills into the organization, but my game plan was this is because I want to do my own thing down the line. So it's how do you utilize the resources and support may look different, but if you have an organization that has the opportunity to invest in yourself, is what I'm hearing from you. Absolutely take advantage of that.
Yeah. And that's one of my guiding principles when I'm supporting early talents and the new generation coming up into the corporate world is the first step in that process is if you're looking for a career is find a career that's going to support your life mission and your personal brand, and
Mm-hmm.
it will fall into place into the corporate strategy. It just will. You'll figure out a way to intertwine them together, but the
Mm-hmm.
catalyst to all that is making sure that you could effectively communicate and you are empowered from your leaders to conquer your life goals. It's not always about the corporate goals. Yes, those will always be at the paramount, but it's your success within that organization to serve that organization effectively.
Yeah. It's being intentional, right,
Yeah.
about your path. One of the first coaching programs I put out was, what is your plan? Purpose, limitations, actions, and network. And so it ties back to exactly everything you're saying. Like, what is your purpose? What are your goals? What is it that you want to accomplish? Right? What are the limitations? What's stopping you from getting there? So, is it that you need additional education? Is it that you need more experience? That's where the job comes in, right? That's where you can start to utilize, okay, what's in front of me? What opportunities do I have that can help me mitigate some of these limitations, right? Your action, like what's my action plan? Now that I know all of this, what is my plan? What is my goal? How am I going to make this actionable? And then network. That goes back to what I was saying earlier, like who in your network can help you accomplish these goals. So it's a much more intentional process than just kind of floating through in a job and just kind of figuring out where they put you versus you understanding what you need to get out of each step in the process. I want to do a little bit of a pivot because I want to talk about kind of the flip side of this with what do you do when you feel like you don't have control in the situation, right? Where I've had, and I've personally experienced this too, where it's like I have my plan and then something happens and that shifts everything. And I'm like, okay, how do I navigate this?
Yeah.
Um, and there's oftentimes, and especially now, I'm hearing it from so many people at all levels within an organization where stress is high, burnout is high. Um,
Yeah.
People are trying to hold on. And in some cases, dignity is low, right? I'm hearing stories of people who are working that are having to go to food banks and having to they're really struggling. And so how do you continue to push forward? Like, what recommendations would you give folks when times are tough? It's a struggle. How do you keep focused, like eyes on the prize?
Yeah. Self care. Surround, and you've touched on this, Sasha. I'll give you an example. My LinkedIn profile, I have 15,000 people. Now, out of those 15,000 people, who can I really lean on, and who is Team Shazad?
Hmm.
Very few. We spend a lot of time on social media, establishing a
Mhm.
social media footprint. Is it real? Is it real? Are you traveling to Africa every single week? Are you traveling to a resort every single week and everything is gravy? I don't know. Maybe it is reality. It's not my reality. Um,
Right.
Self care is critical. Identify what makes you happy. What are the things that make you happy, keep you active? Identify your life's mission. That is the first step in this whole process. What is your purposeful life's mission? And that took me a while to make sure I validated. And there was a lot of circumstances and consequences that happened to get me to be able to identify exactly what my life's mission was. And then putting a plan together for to be able to be successful to fuel your life's mission. And what I've felt is what's helped me kind of conquer and feed my life's mission has always been self-care, and putting a
Mhm.
team also around yourself that you trust, that are fueling your life's mission. They may not be advocating you, but they're advocating your life's mission. Um,
Mhm.
if it's philanthropy, you put those people with that mindset. If it is building a business, you put those people you trust behind them. So planning, strategizing, self awareness, and self care are all very, very, very critical pieces to that. But there's tactical things that follow all those key milestones that I mentioned. And the first piece of that is also identifying what those are for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
if you don't, I'm a big advocate of data and a big advocate of documenting things, because in this digital age, there's so many things that are happening in life, getting pulled in a million different directions. How to stay in control and stay positive and making sure you can move forward to address those things. I mean, if I didn't document things, I would be all over the place, honestly. So I keep myself
You and me
accountable
both.
for documenting things.
You and me both. I have so many little notepads and all around. One of the questions that I often ask my coaching clients that I think ties in exactly with what you're saying
Yeah,
is
yeah,
what brings you joy, right? Because we could be in the middle of a session talking about work and I'm like, okay, what brings you joy? And I've noticed the immediate body shift, the body language shifts. Because often we put off the things that bring us joy as a reward of sorts, right? Oh, I only do that when I've accomplished X, Y, and Z. And so I'm like, you really need to focus on, or what would it look like if you were to focus on bringing yourself joy 10 minutes a day? Like, what would that look like? And when you start to think about self-care and you start to think about what fills your cup and all the other phrases that I use, it doesn't have to be extravagant. It's not always going to the spa. It's not always, whatever these other things are. For some people, it's sitting in quiet. For some people, it's going for a walk, right? It doesn't have to be going on the big vacation all the time. But I think it's so important in what you were saying is really focus on what does self-care look like for you? What does that mean for you? Because that is very individual. And who's in your village that can help support that. There are times where I've had friends to say, okay, so when was the last time you did X, Y, and Z? Put that stuff down, let's go. Right? Because they know that once I fall down a rabbit hole, I'm down there for a long time. And so how do I help pull you out? And it's those individuals. It goes back to what you were talking about, that village, right? Knowing this is my village for my business. This is my village for self-care. And how do you lean into and how do you tap into these groups when you need them most? And do they know when to tap into you? Because you may not necessarily see that you're falling down a rabbit hole, or you're starting to disconnect from who you truly are. And so that, I think, is so critically important. So Shazad, if people wanted to connect with you, talk to you, find out how they can learn more about you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Great question. Contact me on LinkedIn, call me, email me, WhatsApp me, multiple ways. I have an open door policy with everybody. It takes a village to support someone's overall life's mission, but it takes a village of positivity to make the world run smoothly and run in a happy place. Like we're so many of us are wearing so many hats, and you made a point of what brings me joy. I try to keep it simple. What brings me joy is spending time with my little girl. That's she is the fuel that serves my life's mission. Everything I do is for her, and everything I do is for others. And Sacha, I'll be completely transparent with you. There's I'm in control of. Very little I'm in control of.
Mm-hmm.
And once you come to the realization that we have very little control of our own lives, and empower the people that are around us to fuel our life's mission, that I feel like that success rate goes through the roof. Because if you have a big life's mission and you want to serve a large volume of people and do the things that you want to accomplish, if you have some big dreams, you have to empower and delegate those people that you trust to help you fuel that.
Absolutely. Well, Shazad, thank you so much for being now a part of my village. But thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. I think that there's so many people that don't necessarily know what their mission is. And so this may be the catalyst to help them start thinking about that and who's in their village to be able to help support that, and to start thinking about their own self-care path, because all of this ties in together into how we serve ourselves, but serve others. And we can't, as I say it often, right? We can't give from an empty cup. So we need to fill our own cups and give from our overflow. So thank you so much for joining us today. DEI After 5 is produced by the Leon Thomas Group. For more information, go to theleonthomasgroup.com.